I recently developed this little training activity where you have to build the correct sentence by clicking these buttons, kind of like in Duolingo. You can use this for any task that the learner has to perform in order, or if you're just tired of the traditional drag and drop. I find that with this, the interaction is a bit easier and it's just a bit more fun. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to build that in Storyline with or without JavaScript. But before I dive in, I want to let you know that I've been having these webinars where I share the entire process of gamification, and we have a live Q&A, and talking to you guys and answering all your questions has been so much fun. So if you want to join us for the next one, the link to register for that is going to be down below. Okay, now on to the video. So the challenge here is to build a correct yes/no question. For example, is the dog sleeping on my bed? First thing I'm going to do is create these boxes that people can click on, these buttons. I'm going to have 4 correct answers. Is, that's the auxiliary, subject, the dog, verb, sleeping, and object, on my bed. I know grammatically that's not an object, I'm just going to call it that. And I'm going to have 2 wrong choices, wrong auxiliary, are, and a wrong verb, sleeps. And these are going to be variables so that I can easily change questions. But right now, they're showing up in red because I haven't created those variables yet. So let's do that. Next, I'm going to create these 4 boxes that are going to get populated based on what the learner chooses. So these are going to be the learner's answers, right or wrong. So the first one is going to catch the first word they click on. That should be the auxiliary, is. So I'm going to call this aux answer. Next we have subject answer, verb answer, object answer. And now let's actually create these variables. Okay, next I'm going to create the logic that makes it so that whenever I click on one of these buttons, its value gets placed up here in one of those boxes. These boxes are getting filled in order, so I need to know how many buttons I've clicked so far. The first time I click a button, that word's going to show up here in this first box. The second word I click shows up here, and then the third and the fourth. So to track what word I'm on, I'm going to create a variable called word number, and that's going to be a number variable. I'm putting this up here because I like to have my variables displayed as I'm developing so that I can see what their value is. Of course, I make this invisible afterwards so the learner doesn't have to see it, but it helps me figure out when I have a bug and where that bug is. So when this slide starts, the word number is going to be 1. So adjust the variable word number to the value 1 when the timeline starts on this slide. So when I'm on word number 1, this box here is the one getting populated, no matter what I click, right or wrong. And then I'm going to increment that word number to 2. So let's start with this aux button. When I click on this, if I'm on word number 1, then this variable auxiliary answer should display whatever word was in here. So adjust variable auxiliary answer to match the variable auxiliary when the learner clicks on aux if the word number is 1, if I'm currently working on filling this box. Now if I click on this button but the word number is 2, this value, aux, should go into the second box, and on word 3 it should go in this third box, and 4 it should go in this box. So I'm just going to copy this trigger. So if I'm on word 2, I should not update auxiliary answer, I should update subject answer. So that's what I'm going to do. On word 3 I'm going to update verb answer, and on 4 I'm going to update object answer. I also always need to increment my word number. So once I've clicked on this once, I've transferred this value up here, I need to increment my word number so that the next box that gets updated is this one. So let's increment that. Word number. Add the value 1 whenever I click on aux, and I'm going to remove this condition because I want this to happen no matter what. So let's test this by giving this variable a value. So I'm just going to take this variable and I'm going to give it a default value, say hello. And now the word number is 1. So when I click on it, the value goes up here and the number gets incremented to 2. So if I click again, the value now goes into the second box, and now the third box and the fourth. That works. So now I'm going to repeat this for all of my other buttons. So let's just grab this logic and I'm going to paste it onto all my other buttons. But of course, if I click on subject, I don't want to set that answer to aux. I want to set it to this variable subject. So let me change that to the variable subject. And that's the case no matter what box I'm working on right now, no matter what the number is. For this button, I'm going to set it to the variable verb, and I continue on for all of them, including if I click on the wrong auxiliary or the wrong verb. So now let's put in some values into all these variables and see what happens. Let's say the correct sentence is the dog sleeping on my bed? So here, auxiliary, the right answer is. Object is on my bed, subject the dog, verb sleeping, and I put in some wrong values as well. Okay, let's try it. Is the dog sleeping on my bed? Perfect. Of course, this is super easy right now because they're all shown in the correct order, so I'm going to fix that right away. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to change this question slide and turn it into a free-form question. So let's take pick one. And what happens now is Storyline's asking me which one of these elements on my slide are my clickable choices. So I'm going to pick my 6 blue buttons. I'm not even picking a correct one here because I'm not actually going to use Storyline's built-in logic. All I'm doing here is I'm telling it which elements are clickable because then I can tell it to shuffle those choices. So that's why I told it what those choices were. Sleeping is the dog on my bed. Kind of poetic. So now they're all shuffled. That works. And I'm going to get rid of the logic that Storyline has built in, these correct and incorrect layers, because I'm going to create my own. And I'm also going to get rid of that submit button and create my own one of those as well. So let's recreate my own correct and incorrect layers. And next thing I'm going to do is make a check button so that I can verify that I've picked the words in the right order. Okay, so now when I click this, what I want to do is display the correct layer. So show me the layer correct if whatever I have as my auxiliary answer matches the actual auxiliary. But also, what's in the subject answer needs to match the actual subject, what's in verb answer needs to match the verb, and what's in object answer matches the object. If not, else, if these conditions are not met, then show me the layer incorrect. Great, let's try it. The dog on my bed sleeping is, said Yoda, incorrect. Is the dog sleeping on my bed correct? So that works. Next, let's say I'm building a sentence and I messed up. I want to be able to reset and not have to get the whole thing wrong and then try again. So I'm going to create a reset button right here. So I just copied this one, so let's get rid of this logic. So when I click on reset, what I want is for all these answer variables to get cleared so I can start again. So I set my aux answer to blank and I copy this for all my other answer variables. Object, verb, and subject, all blank. I also need to bring my word number back to 1 so that I can pick my first word again. So let's set the word number to 1. Is, are, sleeps, reset. Dog, are, sleeps, reset. That works. Okay, and the last thing I'd like to do is I want these buttons to disappear as I'm picking them. So here I add this trigger that says change state of this button to hidden when I click on it. And I'm going to copy that trigger and paste it onto all my buttons. However, now when I reset, my buttons are gone, so I have to bring them back. So on my reset button, I want to say change the state of this button to normal when I click reset. And I copy that for all my buttons, all 6 of them. And that's it, we're done with the basic functionality. So let's clear these values out of these variables so that they're back to being blank. So what I want to do next is add more sentences. I want the game to take these 5 sentences, pick one at random, and present it to me. There's 2 ways of doing this. There's the code-free version using only Storylines, triggers, and variables, and there's a much faster way using JavaScript. And you don't need to know JavaScript to do this. I don't know JavaScript. I just cobbled together pieces of script I found here and there, and I modified them. So I'm going to show you both, starting with the code-free version. But if you want to skip right to the script part, skip to this part of the video. All right, first let's do this code-free. So to get the game to pick a sentence, I'm going to create a new slide, a blank slide. I'm going to call that pick a question. And let's place it right before this one. I always get rid of the next and previous buttons so that other events are the ones moving the user between slides. So what's going to happen on this slide is I'm going to have it pick a number at random. So I create a variable called random, and it's a number variable. And when the slide starts, it's going to set that variable to a random number between 1 and 5 when the timeline starts. So it's picking a number between 1 and 5. Then I'm going to create a layer called 1 and say, show me that layer 1 if the random number you picked is 1. In other words, if that question you picked is this first question. And on this layer, it's going to set all the variables for that question. So auxiliary is going to be is, subject is going to be the dog, verb is sleeping, and so on for all 6 choices, including my 2 wrong choices. So now it's picked the random number, and if it's a 1, it's going to come here and set all these variables, and the next thing it needs to do is jump to the question. So jump to slide, question. And now I'm just going to copy this layer and make 1 for each question and change the variable values. So if it picks 2, then the auxiliary is, the subject is my sister, the verb is looking, the object for work, and I'm just going to speed through the rest. All right, now I've done them all, and let's not forget to create these triggers too so that I can show layers 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I'm going to write loading here so that it'll display that briefly while it's doing this, while it's picking and setting the variables. All right, so now it's going to pick a question, set the variables, present the question. I get it correct or incorrect, but then nothing happens. So what I want to do here is when I've finished answering and it displays correct or incorrect, I want to send it back to pick another question. So on the correct layer, I'm going to jump to slide, pick a question when the timeline ends. And I'm going to make this timeline about 1 second. So you're going to see this correct feedback for 1 second, and then it's going to jump out to pick a new question. And if you get it incorrect, I'm going to do the exact same thing. So at the end of this 1 second, it's just going to jump back and pick another question. All right, let's try it. Uh-oh, I see 2 bugs here. One is obvious. That's so what's happening here is it's jumping to pick a question, but when it comes back to this question, the correct layer stays displayed, so that sends you back to pick again, so it just keeps jumping back and forth. The solution is that when you revisit this question slide, you want to reset it to initial state so that these 2 layers no longer appear when you come back. So that's going to solve the first problem. But the second problem is here. When I finish, it picks another question, but these 4 boxes are not cleared. So what I want to do is when I'm picking a new question, I also want to clear these 4 answer boxes. So adjust variable, set auxiliary answer to blank when the timeline starts. And then I copy that for all 3, object answer, subject answer, and verb answer. Now they should all be cleared. And I'm going to put all of these right at the beginning, so that's the first thing that's going to happen. So now when I pick a question, it comes back and these are cleared. Great. So as I'm answering questions, it's just going to keep going back and picking new questions to present forever. Obviously, I want to make it so that any question I got correct doesn't get shown to me again. So for that, I need to know which ones I got correct already. So I'm going to create more variables, correct, and that one's going to be a true-false variable. And I'm just going to copy that one 5 times. So correct 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got 5 of these, and I can get rid of this original one. So now when I get question 1 correct, this true-false variable is going to get set to true. Same thing for all the other questions. So right here on the correct layer, when I get something right, I'm going to say set correct 1 to true if that question that I just answered was question 1. That is, if that random number that I had picked was value 1. And I'm going to do the same thing for every other number as well. All right, so now they're all getting set to true, and you know what? I'm going to put these in debug text as well, which you absolutely don't need to do, but it's just a good habit. So now these values are going to get set to true when I answer correctly, but it's still going to keep on picking the same question over and over again. I haven't told it how to avoid that yet. So I've got to do something over here now. I've got to change this logic. If you pick number 1, but it's already been answered correctly, I want you to pick another question. So here's what we're going to do. Show me layer 1 if you've picked number 1, but only if correct 1 is false. That is, if I've never answered this question correctly. And let's do that for all of them. Now, if you pick number 1 and correct 1 is true, that is, if I have answered it correctly, then no, don't show me the layer, just pick another number. So if it's true, I want you to jump to this slide again. So in that case, jump to this slide. So now in that case, it's just going to jump back and it's going to go through all this logic again and pick a new number. And now do that obviously with all the possibilities as well. All right, so now it's just going to keep jumping back to this slide until it picks one that's never been answered correctly. This red circle indicates that it's jumping back to itself under certain conditions. All right, so now I should never get the same question again. Is the SME changing his mind? Yes, this variable is now true. Is my sister looking for work? Now that's true. And let's speed through all of them to the last one. And now you see that at the end, it gets stuck. It doesn't have any more questions to pick. They've all been answered correct, so it gets stuck in this loop of jumping back to this slide forever. So when I answer the last one correctly, I don't want it to go back and pick another question. I want it to stay here and tell me I've won. So let's create a game over layer and have a little celebration here. Easiest way to know when the game is over is to create a score. So I'll create a variable, and this is a number. And now whenever I'm correct, I'm going to add 1 to the score. Okay. And now at the end of this layer, I'll go back to pick a question only if the score is less than 5. And if it's equal to 5, then I want to throw up that game over layer. So at the end of this, show me the layer game over if the score is 5, because that means I've got them all. So I test that. And it works. We're done. Now this doesn't seem so bad, but it's actually a huge pain in the butt if you have more than 5 questions, which you probably would. Just to get 5 questions, I've had to create these 5 triggers and these other 5 triggers and to create these 5 layers as well. On the correct layer, I've got to keep track of these correct variables 1 through 5 here, so imagine if I had 25 questions. So it's a lot of fiddling around and a lot of places to make mistakes, so that's why it's a lot faster in JavaScript. So if you're not afraid of a little script, let me show you how I do that. But if you want to skip the script part and just go to polish, here's the part of the video you want to skip to. So let's do this in script, and to show you how, I'm just going to duplicate this scene that I just made and call it with JavaScript, just to show you the differences. Now here on the pick a question slide, I don't need to pick a random number. I don't need any of these triggers, so that's gone. And I don't need any of these layers either, so I get rid of those. All I'm going to do here is execute a JavaScript. So here I'm just going to paste in a script, and if you want the exact script, I'll put a link down in the description below so you can grab it. And I'm not going to go into a ton of detail here, but here's generally what this script does. This part up here is setting up my array of possible questions. So here are all my auxiliaries in a specific order. This is my auxiliary for question 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And if you look at all my subjects, they follow the same order. The subject for question 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So my first sentence is the dog sleeping on my bed? And these are my 2 wrong answers. So notice here that if I just want to add a question, or if my client wants to change something, you just do it here. It's that simple. Just by adding to these enumerations, these lists, you can make as many questions as you want just by modifying these strings of words. In this part here, it's picking a random number between 1 and the length of this array, the length of the array subjects. So right now there's 5 items in that array, so it's going to pick between 1 and 5. And once it's picked the number, say it picks the number 4, it's going to look up which one is the 4th subject. 1, 2, 3, 4, that's me. So it's going to set my subject variable to that. And then it looks up the 4th verb, object, auxiliary, etc. It's always going to be using that 4th one because that's the number it picked at random. And in this part, it's passing those values to storyline. So it's setting the storyline variables for the next question. And this last part here simply stores these arrays so that I don't have to write them out somewhere else later on when I need them in another script. I'm just storing these arrays here for later use. That means if you change something up here, like if you add a question, you will not need to change it anywhere else. So this script has picked my next question and it's set my variable. So the next step is to jump to this slide. So just jump to the slide question when the timeline starts. When we get here and we get the question correct, we don't need to track these correct 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 variables to true or false anymore. We don't need any of that. We're just going to handle that in script. In fact, I don't need these variables at all anymore. But all my script does right now is pick a question from the 5. So if I was to test this right now, it would run my script, pick a question, present the question, and then it would get sent back to pick a question again, and then back here to present that question. So we have the same problem we had before, which is that it might show me the same question twice. So here, when I'm correct, I'm going to run a script that's going to take that question I just got correct and remove it from the arrays of questions so that it can't get picked again. So let's say my question I just got right is the dog sleeping on my bed? I want to take all these words out of their arrays so that they're no longer available to be picked. And that's only going to happen if I got it correct. So I'll run a JavaScript here on the correct layer. And again, I'm pasting this script here. And again, I'll share this in the description below if you want it. So what this script is doing is first it's loading the arrays that I stored before at the end of the previous script. Remember, I stored all my arrays, so now I can load them back in. Here, it's getting the variable subject from storyline. So here, storyline is telling it that the current subject is the dog, for example. Then it looks up that subject, the dog, in the array to find what its index or its address is. And it finds that it's the first one in the array. So now it's going to remove it from the array of possible subjects, and then it's going to remove all the other words that come first, too. The first verb, the first object, the first auxiliary, etc., etc. So now that question's completely gone, and the arrays are all shorter by 1. If my current question had been my sister, that's number 2, it would have spliced out the second element out of all these arrays. So now when it picks a number, it's going to pick between 1 and the new length of this array, which is 4. And based on that new choice, it's going to assign the new variables in storyline. And then it saves my arrays again because now the arrays are different from what they were before. We've taken the dog question out of them. So that's what this does. And I want this to happen only if my score is less than 5. I don't need to run this script if I've already answered all the questions correctly. I don't need to pick a new one. I also don't need to jump back to pick a question ever because now the new question is being selected in the JavaScript right here. And we're going to do that when the timeline starts. As for incorrect, I'm going to do pretty much the same thing, except if I didn't get the last question correct, I don't want to take it out of the arrays, right? I want to keep it in there so that it can be picked and shown to me again. So I'm going to take out all these lines that splice out the latest question because that latest question needs to stay in there so it gets presented again. So now all it does is it loads the arrays, it picks a new question, it sets the variables, and it saves the arrays. That's it. And I'm going to call this incorrect. Okay. And we want this to run only if the score is less than 5. And I don't want to go back to pick a question here either. Now before, when we used to go back to pick a question, we would constantly jump out of this slide and back into it, which means that this question slide kept getting reloaded. And that would set all my buttons to visible, and it would reset my word number and all that good stuff. Now that we're doing this in JavaScript, we're not jumping out and back in anymore. So now, once I've run the JavaScript, I do want to reload this slide with the new variables. So after the JavaScript, I'm just going to say jump to slide, this same slide, when the timeline ends. And let's apply the same thing here on the correct layer. Jump to slide, this slide, if the score is less than 5. One last thing, and when you're using JavaScript, you can't preview in Storyline, so you have to publish. So let's publish just this scene with JavaScript. Is this me changing his mind? Aha, we have a problem. These boxes are not getting cleared anymore because they were getting cleared on this pick a question slide over here, and we're not going to that slide anymore. So I'm just going to take this logic, copy it, and now I'm going to place it on my correct slide when the timeline ends. So right before this slide gets reloaded, I want to blank out these 4 variables. Same thing here on the incorrect layer. And now I'm just going to speed to the final question, and it works all the way to game over. So that's definitely faster than using triggers and variables, especially when you consider that if you want to add any questions, all you have to do is change this little script and everything gets automatically updated and you're done. And then my next move after testing everything would just be to make everything pretty. So here's a montage. So there you have it, my very first storyline tutorial. This came from a special request, so keep them coming. I love answering the questions and making the tutorials. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.